Hi everyone, I'm Denisha Devnarayan, and you're watching the Full Quota podcast on One World Sports Radio.
And welcome everyone to another edition of the Full Quota podcast. My name is Mpho and I've got Tim Discuss here with us to discuss everything that's happening in the South African cricketing scene. Full Quota podcast is on One World Sports Radio, so please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can tweet us at One World Sports Radio. We'll be back live on Saturday because the World Cup is starting. So we'll be bringing you all the South African games. We're following South Africa. You can watch us. You can listen to us on 1WSR.com. You can watch us on YouTube. It's a watch along. Lots of lovely commentary that's going to be coming across. Myself and Tim will be a part of it. We've got lots of other guys coming through, and we'll be hoping and wishing. But for this podcast, just a reminder, Friday we'll be doing our preview of the game. The South Africa-Australia game, the opening of the World T20. South Africa will be wearing the beautiful green. Australia will be wearing, I don't know what I haven't actually seen Australia's kit, but that's another story in itself. And then we've got an Australian writer or guest to kind of discuss with us what their team looks like. And we'll be obviously thrashing and trying to figure out who's actually going to win that first game. It's very important for South Africa to try and win both games, because if you do that, both the first two games, effectively you've beaten the guys who you're fighting for in the semifinals, and you put your foot in the door in the semifinals, and that game in Sharjah against England is just nullified. But let me just introduce Tim. Hi, Tim. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, all good. All ready to go for the show.
Sure. So South Africa played today against Afghanistan in a warm-up match. Like I told you before, I don't care about preseason games. I don't care about warm-up games. But there's something that worried me. And for me, it was 25-1 in whatever T20 context really did bother me after the power play. But Tim, you watched the whole game. What did you think of it? Because I was not happy.
It was a snooze fest. Honestly, it was a snooze fest. There was nothing there in that game that we learned from South Africa that we didn't know already over the last 2 years. They went about it in a cautious manner, try and build to 150. They got short at the end, a few short of 150, and then the bowlers came to the party and won them the game. But the lack of enterprise, the lack of intensity, the lack of purpose for the batsmen was incredibly concerning. Going forward, we just have to look over. As I was watching it at the same time, I was watching West Indies playing against Pakistan, and Pakistan bowled the West Indies out for 130. Pakistan got that total with 5 overs to spare. They played the game with intensity, played the game with purpose, and they wanted to finish the game as quickly as possible. South Africa at the other end were playing T20 cricket that belongs in 2007. We had the first World Cup.
Oh yes,
the other thing I would
want. The one other time we had a penalty shootout in cricket. But yes, Tim, your last thing.
Just the other thing is, of the 120 balls that we faced in our innings, 14 were faced by our biggest hitters at the side, Dwayne Pretorius and David Miller. They faced 14 deliveries. David Miller made 20 of 10. Now, if he faced another 20 balls, we would have got to that 160, 170 if he'd been a bit longer. And both of them were not out at the end. They both came in too late.
So my point here is, where do you place giving people time in the middle who haven't played, like Rassie has not played, over, and you could say David Miller because he just went to India to sit and play, over tactics, because that's why I don't like warm-ups or preseason games, because there's no tactical acumen, there's no tactics being played here. So to a certain extent, I was okay with Rassie coming in at over 11, But um, it was a perfect time to try and give, because tactically at a World Cup, if Temba goes out at over 11, or if a wicket falls at over 11, I'm bringing in my highest strike rate hitter to try and take us home. They chose to bring in Rassie van der Dussen. We've spoken on the show at length about Rassie's diminished role in the side, and so it was quite interesting to see. But that's where my apprehension's always been like, where do you place team tactics over trying to get people into form, Tim?
Yeah, I think that they should have been not looking at that sort of approach. What they should have been looking at is to try and get as many as they could, and that the only approach that could have come to is to bring Miller up,
Be a little bit
bring
more aggressive
Torres up, be more aggressive at the top. I don't mind Rassie coming in at over 5. One of the openers goes out cheaply, he comes in at over 5 or 6. That's fine, because he has time then to build an innings. We know that he can build that up and make it up at the back end of his innings. But if you're asking him to score quickly when he comes in at 11, 12, 13, 14, he can't do that. That's not the way that he goes about his approach. You needed somebody out there to start, bang, boom, I would score 20 of 10, and that's what we needed from that when he came in.
So here's a question from a comment from Werner. He says the question is why Miller is not coming in ahead of Heino Klaassen. Yeah, the two things that I got today was the balance of the side. It was a 6-5 split that, as we had predicted, 6 batsmen, 5 bowlers, which means Reza Hendricks is the batsman on the bench. The initial thought was 5-1-5. With Dwayne Pretorius playing that all-round role, coming in as a number 6. It kind of felt, it confirmed my suspicions, but it kind of felt like even with a 6 batsman lineup, the batting, the guys above were a little bit too circumspect and worried about leaving stuff to the guys at the back end. And so that was my one thing. The second thing that kind of I got was that Dwayne Pretorius is going to bat at 7. And that's okay. And I'm comfortable with that. And the fact that you could get away from a bowling perspective with actually having 3 spinners on the thing and 2 seamers. So I just don't know if Dwayne Pretorius is being considered as a bowler, because I looked at that and I was like, well, this team that does need 3 out-and-out spinners, Bjorn Fortuin, Maharaj, and Shamsi. But then where do you put the second seamer if you're going to play that 6-5 split? And obviously you can't drop Anatol here. You can't drop Kagiso. So in my head, it feels as though maybe Dwayne could be dropped and you go in with a 6-5 split, knowing that after that you get nothing. So unless if they were giving Bjorn Fortuin reps, because Aiden wasn't getting reps today, it was Bjorn. And that to me kind of was like, okay, this is counter what we've seen before. But I think we've spoken enough about it. We're going to talk about it a lot more going into the tournament. Let's move on to that CSA T20 knockout competition. The teams have set themselves apart. We've got the final 8, and we've gotten the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals happening this week. Actually, it ends on Friday. That is how good it is. Just before you get to be watch the Proteas on Saturday morning. So that's a really good thing to happen. Similar to the IPL that ended on Friday, which is weird because you're working and you're like, wait, there's an IPL final on. But that's another story. So Tim, let's go through we're going to go through each game, each quarterfinal, and we're going to talk about each of the teams' squad updates. We've got them ready, and then also what the tactics are. So let's look at the first fixture. The Six Gun Grill Southwestern Districts taking on the Momentum Multiplied Titans. Tim, firstly, squad updates from both teams.
Okay, so Tinnis de Bruin and Simon Harmer coming for the Titans, and the SWD, Lus Deploy, comes in for SWD. Is that right?
Okay, so not a lot of big changes to both teams, but those 2 additions that you spoke about of the Titans, in looking at them, it seems to change the dynamics of the fixture now. Tennis De Brain, and as much as he's a red ball guy, I've always loved his white ball abilities and ODIs. It'll be interesting to see how it translates. The person they dropped, which is interesting, they dropped the South African Test captain Indian Alga, which I just sat there going, okay, that kind of tells you a lot about how they played in the round robin in the group stages. But then the tasty prospect of having Aaron Pangiso, the captain, as well as Simon Harmer in some sort of a spin twin a fusion coming out from the men from the Sky Blues. And then obviously Junior Dala's also in the side as well now. So the bowling for the Titans has gotten a lot better and the batting's also improved. I'd love to see how Jan-Henrik Pretorius at the top of the order again. But I look at that Titans team and I'm like, okay, this is what I expected in the group stages to see in the group stages.
Yeah, yes. We discussed last time, we said that this was a great chance for SWD to win. And I certainly had them as a little bit of a favourite because of the way that they were playing their cricket. But those two additions that they have, with, as you say, with Junior Dala, does make it a little bit more leaning towards Titans. If they perform to their potential, it does put a lot more pressure on SWD. I say that even though this is not really Harmer's format. Harmer's a decent T20 cricketer. His record is pretty good, but this is not really his format. So it's more about tennis the brain for me, from a Titans perspective. At this level,
adding power to that top order. He dominates at this level. Absolutely dominates. So but then on the other side,
looking to more hit him. Sorry again. Sorry.
So I'm saying on the other side now, Southwestern Districts, Herschel America, top wicket taker in the tournament. He's going to be wanting to take a lot of scalps tomorrow morning. But the addition of Les Deploy to this very brave, because that's the type of cricket they played. They played brave cricket throughout that group stages. And to a certain extent, it was rewarded in them having a higher net run rate than the Lions. Herschel America, you've got Heath Richards, you've got Jean Duplessis. We've seen all these guys do it against Division 1 quality bowling attacks. Add Lias Deploy to that middle order. Tell us a little bit more about Lias and why I'm excited. I know, I've seen Lias, but you've followed him a lot more than me. But yeah, what are we expecting tomorrow from the guy who we're angry that is playing Division 2 but should be playing Division 1?
Lias Deploy has been dominating white ball cricket the last couple of seasons in the UK for Derbyshire. He's averaging in the mid to high 40s, strike rate of about close to 140. He's a lovely hitter of the ball. Really, he strikes it really well. He will have played against Simon Harmer over at the UK, so he would have faced them. He would have known exactly what he brings to the party from a Titans perspective. So that won't be new to him as such. There's going to be a lot from him, I think. Of course, T20 anything can happen, but I think with Duplessis and Deploy, they've got two batsmen there that could really have a huge impact on this quarterfinal. If either of them come off, then they've got a genuine chance of making the semi-final.
Yeah, so Werner also says Lias hit some lusty blows in the 100 a few months back. He really upped his strike rate. And to a certain extent, that's what we're hoping to see tomorrow. If Southwestern Districts has any chance tomorrow, they're going to have to take on this Titans bowling attack. We know that the Titans batting hasn't been great, and obviously Tennis De Brain adds that extra quality. But from a bowling attack, that's where they won their games. They were low-scoring contests, but they managed to hold on. Remember Aaron Pangiso trying to defend, I don't know what it was, in that reduced game against Mpumalanga when we all thought that could be the upset of all upsets. So I think for me, that's where Lewis Duploy comes in, he adds that extra bit of quality. Now, Junior Dala's not bowling to Division 2 quality batsmen. He's actually bowling to a county level batsman. And then on top of that, you've got all those youngsters, those 20-year-old youngsters who've played SA and at age group levels who are coming in, who are proving themselves. He will never forget Heath Richards is 41 or 14, and that's what you kind of want. And I'm so excited because this change in what you call it in the personnel kind of now swings it over to Southwestern Districts. If I was a betting man, I'd put some money on SWD because it is one game, and it could end up being really truly powerful for them, and they could end up winning. So that's the one. Tim, let's move over to the next one. The next fixture is the iTech Knights against the 6-gun Grill Western Province. This is an interesting one because obviously Western Province did lose to Southwestern Districts early on, but the Knights are unchanged, which is great. Unchanged. Yeah. They looked like one of the top 2 teams. Them and the Dolphins set themselves apart. But then from a Western Province, one man comes in, that's David Beddingham, and Jordan Wolf comes out. David Beddingham is also a county person, so we're seeing a lot of county guys coming in. Guys who played in county are now coming in. But what does David Beddingham bring? Because I remember when he left, I think he averaged 50 in domestic, in 4-day cricket. And then he went overseas. I remember Ashwell Prince was lamenting the fact that David Beddingham left. But are we still getting the same David Beddingham, or is it different batsman?
You're getting a different batsman. You're getting a batsman who now has the ability to just wait that extra second or two to play shots, because he has had to been able to adjust to that in the English conditions. When he started over in England, he was a little bit too loose because of the trying to get used to the moving ball, but he adjusted to that exceptionally quickly over there, winning all sorts of awards this year, averaging 50 over there, doing exceptionally well in all formats. He's an individual. He's an individual who does things in a calm manner. He doesn't do it in a... There's a difference between him and Lewis Duploy for the SWD. SWD, you know when he's made a good score. You see it. You notice it. You notice there's half a dozen sixes that have gone into the car park. David Beddingham looks to pierce the infield. David Beddingham, he doesn't feel he needs to go airborne. He can go airborne. He can hit big, but he doesn't always feel the need to. If the situation calls for just hitting it through the infield, piercing the cover fieldsman, then that's exactly what he'll do. He's a much better player than he was when he left. I know that's slightly strange to say when he was averaging 50, but he understands his game a lot better now, particularly the fact that he's played 3 formats. He's played at 100 as well, went to the final there. So he knows his game exceptionally well.
So I think from a tactical perspective for me, Western Province have a very good bowling attack. And I think that's probably where they're going to try and constrict the Knights, because the Knights' batting, Riley Rousseau was on point. Jacques Sneeman hasn't batted really well, but you've got the likes of Fah and Bardine. You've got the likes of Pite van Biljon in the middle, who can carry the side. Jared Coetzee hits the ball far. Miguel Pretorius also hits the ball pretty far. But on the other end, if you turn the tables again to look at the batting of Western Province, it's improved with David Beddingham inside, and Zubair Hamza, who scored a century in this tournament, one of the 2 centuries in this tournament. He's going to want to continue his form. Tony DeZorzi is going to want to probably put runs under his belt there at the top as well. And it's a much better matchup than the first T20. However, I look at this Knights bowling attack and it's effectively experience versus necessarily youth, because you've got Joe Coetzee, you've got Miguel Pretorius, you've got Neelan van Heerden in there, and so it's experience in that Western Province with Bashir Walters, Buren Hendricks, Wayne Parnell versus the youngsters. And these guys are the guys who are looking to be Proteas. So it's a nice little matchup for me, looking at the quality of cricket that's going to be on show. But I can't pinpoint. There are a couple of guys you can pinpoint. Zubair Hamza needs to bat really well at the top. Riley Rousseau needs to do the same thing. But from a bowling perspective, you need the Kutsias to come through. You need Miguel Petros to bowl well. He didn't bowl that well in the group stages. And I look at on the other side, you need Wayne Parnell to be the Wayne that we saw in that first group set, because he was a great captain and he was also a great bowler. He took a lot of responsibility. And Björn Hendricks also came through with Nandre Berger. So for me, that's where I'm looking. Are there any other places where you're looking to be like, okay, where's this quarterfinal going to be swung?
No, I think you sum it up perfectly. If Western Province are going to win this game, for me, it's going to be to look at the South African way, the bowling attack. I'm looking forward to seeing batting and bat, sure, but it's going to be the bowlers that are going to do the talking for me. And for the Knights, that top order is so strong. You're right to say that a couple of them haven't come off, but if somebody like Snyman comes off, then that's huge problems for the province.
Yes.
Because we know that he can hit the ball a long way, and a really good strike rate. So as you say, it's the Knights batting versus the province bowling, as to who will come out on top. That's a hard one to call, actually. I actually think it's a very hard one to call at the moment. Could go either way.
Because the first game I'm leaning Titans, but also just put money on Southwestern Districts if you want to get some money. But the second one, I sit here going, maybe Knights. Actually, I think I look at the Knights and I think Riley Rousseau changes a lot for this team, and if he's firing, then yes. Whereas if I think that's the change in the batting. Whereas I know Zubair Hamza can do it, but he's probably going to have to do it. He's probably going to have to be strong. Well, do it again. Whereas I think Riley's had a much larger body of work than Zubair in T20. Yeah. So I can trust him. The next thing, Riley goes out for a dap tomorrow afternoon, and then we're all just laughing.
Well, a part of me, and this is because the shorter the version of cricket, the less interested that I am. So I know that he's been picked by the T10, Riley. So part of me was thinking, well, does that mean he misses out on this competition? No, this was a few days ago when the squads were announced. So I thought, oh, crikey, that would make a huge difference to the Knights. If we didn't have Riley, then that'd be in huge problems. But obviously, T10 is later on in the year.
Yeah. Well, yes, it is. Remember, Mzansi Super League was competing with the Abu Dhabi T10. Okay, so we've gone through the first two. That's day one. Now, day two, that's Wednesday, sees the Dolphins against the Warriors and the Rocks against the Dragons. Let's start with Dolphins Warriors. Squad news from both teams. So let's have a look at them. So the Dolphins, Tim, you mentioned that Prenel Subran and Grant Rulofsson are injured. And so therefore Marcus Ackerman's going to captain the side, but there aren't any changes as of yet in terms of the team.
Brian is not going to be replaced. I don't know about Rulofsson, but Sir Brian is not going to be replaced. That I do know.
So, and then obviously on the other side, the Warriors are unchanged.
Unchanged. Yes. Yeah, they've gone with the same side.
Yes. Okay, so essentially, now it's a pity because Grant Rulofsson was is one of the top run scorers in this competition, and obviously they lose out on that at 3. That means Keegan Peterson comes in to the side. Does that change the odds of this? Because this was, I think when we looked at this last week, this was probably the tie of the round. You're having a very strong Warriors side against the Dolphins. What do you make?
I think what's going to happen is what you wanted to happen last round. I think Bryce Parsons is going to bat up the order. Because of the injury to Rulofsson, nice. I think Bryce Parsons is going to bat up the order because of that injury. And that's going to be very interesting. Because if he performs like he did with the ball, and that could be huge for the Dolphins. The Dolphins still have the best coach, the best unit, the best team in togetherness and approach and the way they go about their game. But I do think that those injuries and the change in captaincy and the fact that the Warriors are completely settled after their initial injuries in the beginning of the tournament are going to be slight favourites now. No changes for them. I think they're slight favourites.
And that's the thing. They're losing Quinlan Subryan, who has been at the Dolphins for years. So to Grant Rulofsson, who's had great limited over seasons over the past 18 months. And so to a certain extent, it places a lot of a burden on Marcus Ackerman, who's been good for them, but he has to now shoulder the burden. They have to share Grant Rulofsson's runs between Marcus Ackerman, Bryce Parsons, Jason Smith, who gave us that lovely 40 there to kind of remind us that he's there, he's still around. So there's going to be a lot more on them. And also from the spin department, because this team, we've always known the Dolphins as a spinning team. So now you have a situation where Bryce Parsons now probably is going to be the leading spinner in the side, leading probably even Odirile Mudimukwane coming in because he played in that last game. So very inexperienced spin attack. The bowlers are also pretty young, but very good. They're young, but very good. Ntini, Bartman. Ntini was even benched for some of the games. You've got Bartman, you've got Kerwin Mangru. So that Dolphins bowling attack essentially has been weakened by the exit of Subryan. And so you kind of sit there going, this Warriors team came and they played one way. They played a very aggressive brand of cricket, and they can put certain bowlers in this Dolphin side under a lot of pressure. I look at Bryce Parsons. I kind of felt that in that first game, Bryce was given a little bit of an easy pass against the Dragons. I don't think he's going to get that against the Warriors, because you've got John, you've got Vian Libber, you've got the Sheila, you've got Matthew Bretzka, who was a top run scorer in this tournament as well. That top six from the Warriors is hard, and it's now made even harder for the Dolphins because they've lost their captain and stalwart. And it's quite interesting because obviously now Keshav, if he wasn't in this Proteas setup, he would have been there. Werner says no, Marco Janssen's been added to the squad because he didn't play in the first.
That's true. No, he's right. He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. Apologies.
I'm excited to see Marco Janssen do his thing. He's the IPL. And that's going to be a massive boost for Robbie P, because Tiam van Vuuren bowled quite well, but now you add in quality in Marco Janssen. So yeah, I'm with you, Tim. Warriors here. Warriors are a very good pick here. And I do think Warriors are a very, very good pick here.
That top six of batting is just, if it comes off on a consistent basis,
not even
the
that
next
top
3
six,
games,
top 8, because you've got Marco Janssen there batting lower down the order. You've got remember what happened the last time. That's the wrong squad. Remember the last time Mwepe and you've got Stubbs. You've also got Marco Janssen there at 7 and 8. It's a power packed team. I think this is probably the deepest batting lineup in the tournament. And that's saying something in a tournament that has a team called the Knights, who also have like Gerald Coetzee, who can bat pretty deep as well. So well, look, we're now changing our call on the favorites, on the team we dubbed the favorites based on injuries. But look, coaching still has to come into this, and so we'll see how that goes. I'm loving this whole Robbie P Imran Khan matchup that's going to happen on Wednesday morning. Final game of the quarterfinals is the G-Bet Rocks from Paarl against the Northwest Dragons. Team news from both these teams. you can look at Stian van Zyl. Okay, I think there's a lot of team news coming out of the Rocks, whereas we're assuming the Northwest Dragons are unchanged based on the fact that they played like 10 days ago. What's happening at the Rocks? I see a lot of other Colpack guys coming in, and a certain Sima who won them the MSL.
Hardesvillian is coming in, and Stian van Zyl are both available. Again, we see the Colpack or former Colpack influence again. The Rocks were strong before this, and they were playing some really good cricket. But especially with Hardest, this makes a huge, huge difference to them. And I think, even though I like a lot of what Northwest brought to this tournament, I'm afraid I'm going to have to go with the Rocks, and Rocks quite considerably. I think too much would have to go wrong for them to not win this game. They've got too many match winners in that team.
Yeah, and if you look at that team, you've got Clyde Fortain, who scored a lot of runs last time out. He scored the other century in this tournament. Yanaman Malans drew a big score. He wants to remind the selectors who he is. Stian van Zyl adds a little bit more to that middle order that kind of, after the top three, kind of falls away. Christian Jonker batted quite well the other day. But also Hardesvillian gives them an all-round option. Obviously, right now, the other all-rounder that is obviously playing for the Proteas, Dwayne Pretorius. Hardest is a similar ilk, and Hardest has played around the world in T20, so his ability with the bat could help the Rocks a lot should there be a top order collapse or heaven forbid something go horribly wrong. The one thing for the Dragons that I'll say is they're a sneaky good bowling side. Aldrin Hawkin at the pace that he bowls at, he needs to try push it to about 145 consistently, because that's where I think his problem is. But Senran Mutusami can turn a game on its head. And so I look at this Northwest team, and I'm like, yes, it looks like a mismatch on either side on batting and bowling. But just like the first game, with the Southwestern Districts and Titans, there are some game winners. Wesley Marshall's batted at this level before, and he did quite well in the group stages. Mutusami also batted really well higher up the order. I'd actually want him to actually be pushed up. Ibn Bota looked really good. And the thing about the Dragons in the Southwestern Districts, and maybe even the Warriors, it's their aggression towards it, because they're not necessarily built the South African way where we've got fast bowlers and we're going to kill you with our bowling. They're built with a lot of steel in the batting. And so I'd love to see the Dragons take it to the Rocks and try be as aggressive as possible, maybe even win the toss, bat first, and put them under the sword. It is a one-game thing. Win, go through; lose, go home. So I think for me, that's what I'm looking to see from the Dragons, because it looks like a mismatch on paper, but luckily we play it on grass and not on paper.
Yeah, it looks like that way. It looks that way, but anything can happen, as you say. The Northwest do have some match winners. My only concern with them is if they don't all happen at the same time. So Wesley scored a quick 40, and then nobody else does anything. And the next game, Borta makes runs. It needs to be 4 or 5 guys doing well at the same time in the same game together. That's what it needs for them to go through.
Yeah. So let's have a final look at those fixtures. Tomorrow, the Southwestern District 6-gun grill SWD play the Titans at 10 a.m. Then you've got the Knights against the Western Province, 6-gun grill Western Province at in the afternoon. Then on Wednesday, you've got the Dolphins against the Warriors in the morning. And then in the afternoon, it's the Rocks against the Dragons. Tim, I think we said Titans go through, Knights go through, unless if you're leaning Western Province.
Knights.
Knights. We also said Warriors go through and the Rocks go through. So you got semi-final 1 being Titans Rocks, which will be very nice. A replay of the MSL 2.0 final where the Tshwane Spartans played the Rocks. And then semi-final 2 will be the Knights against the Warriors, which is also a very tasty prospect. Looking at those at the fixtures and everything else, which team is winning it all?
Because of the injuries, and the injuries are significant, I'm gonna go Warriors. Warriors
So
for their where they play their games, the approach that they take, the changes that Robbie's made in terms of promoting youngsters, batting youngsters higher up the order, giving them impetus to come in at that number 3-4 role to do their business, or coming in early as a bowler. I like the way they play their cricket. They play the cricket with intensity. They play this cricket in the right frame as a T20 side of the 21st century. They don't put the foot off the pedal. They keep it there, and they keep it there as long as they can. So for me, it's got to be the Warriors. They just tick all the boxes. They've got a good top 6-7 batting. They've got good spin bowlers, decent bowling attack. They just tick all the boxes for me. So for me, it's the Warriors.
So I think the Warriors are up there, but I'm slightly leaning Knights, largely because of the fact that technically they are playing at home because Kimberley used to be their home ground. The fans are not going to sweat. Yes, we're allowed fans in the stadium, which is awesome, but I don't think they're going to sweat much. But I do think the pitches are going to be a little bit tired by the time we get to the final, and so it's going to be low scoring. And I don't think the Warriors have the bowling attack to withstand low scoring games, whereas I do think the Knights have a better bowling attack. If the Rocks can manage to get to the final, I'd actually pick the Rocks over the Knights, largely because I kind of see that MSL2, and I kind of see Adrian Burrell just slowing the game down with Imran Manak and Siam Mahim and probably even Sean van Berg. And that's something that I'm like intrigued by, because I know the Rocks will play the Knights in that semi-final. The Rocks will play, it's 1 and 4. Yeah, no, it's 1 and 3. So it's Warriors Titans, sorry, and it's Rocks versus Knights. So in that second semi-final between possibly the Rocks and the Knights, the winner is probably going to come out of there. I do think the Warriors, when they play the Titans, they'll beat the Titans. But I don't. My biggest issue with the Warriors is because they're so young, I don't see them winning 3 in a row. And now's the big issue with them in the CSA T20 Challenge. They just couldn't string wins in a row. There's always has to be a loss somewhere. And at this back end of the tournament, I don't think they could. I don't think they can go 3 in a row. I do think they can win 2 in a row, but a third one in the final might be a little bit a bridge too far. Werner says, if Gerald Coetzee continues to put in good performances, he might get a bid at the IPL mega auction. He also played for the Rajasthan Royals until COVID interfered. He's definitely one for the future. That is very true. One player you're looking out for, Tim, to in this week, where you're like, I want to watch him. I think he's gonna surprise everybody.
It's not so much, so we say, a surprise factor, but what I'm looking for in this round, and actually just the entire rest of the tournament, is the death bowling. And if Bartman can continue on his on the way that he's been doing for the Dolphins, if he can continue on that fashion, bowling well at the death, he is one to watch. You said yourself, and you're right. He could be a pro tier 12 to 18 months from now. There's nothing to say that he couldn't if he continues in this fashion. So if he can continue on his reign, I think Bartman for me is going to be one to watch out for, particularly with Brian injured, so he's going to have extra pressure on him, if you like. in the bowling department.
So I think for me, I'm going to go with Yanaman Malan. He disappointed us in the group stages. I don't think he's going to disappoint us again. I do think if he is firing on all cylinders, you might as well give him the trophy to on Wednesday afternoon, because I honestly do think he is a game changer in this game. He's an above average boundary hitter. There's not a lot of those guys in the tournament. The Warriors have a lot of them. But the Knights only have the Rocks only have him, and Clyde Fortain's coming up. So I think if the Rocks are to match their very strong spin-heavy bowling attack, Yanaman Malan has to go big, and he has to show his dominance. And I'm expecting from, because here's the thing with South Africa, we have to get to a point where we ask our big players. And this is something about the World Cup, where we ask our big players to step up and do it consistently. And that is something that has been alluded, because African fans are just like, no, dude. No, we need to ask big players to step up in big moments. And if this week isn't a big enough moment for you, then you technically don't deserve to be at the T20 World Cup or even be considered, because this is where we want you to come to. And it's the same thing with the World Cup. It's the same thing with the Proteas. The big players in that South African cricket side, whether it's batting or bowling, need to step up consistently for South Africa to be successful. And the great thing about this, the fact that it's a knockout competition and it's finals week, if you don't come through, you go home. There's no tomorrow. So I really do hope that even across all the teams, all the big players, Tennis de Braden was brought in to strengthen the batting. So he needs to step up. Les Deploy, same thing. David Bellingham, same thing. Even the bowlers, Junior Dala, guys need to step up. And it's the Protea level players that need to step up. It's not these youngsters. These youngsters are playing with house money. It's free. Like it's nice and with no pressure. And that's what we want. But this is the moment where across all 8 teams, your big names need to step up. Southwestern Districts, Jean Duplessis, you need to score runs. If you don't score runs, you're going home. And that's what I'm going to enjoy this week, is watching those big players, former Proteas, current Proteas, guys who've been dropped out of the World Cup, whatever it is, whoever you are, you're there for a reason. You're paid more money than everyone else, so show it. And that's what I'm hoping to see this week. And so, yeah, you're on notice. You guys are all on notice. If you don't want to, then go home.
Look, SWT said, right, we've got extra money. Let's spend it on Les Deploy. There it is. They've spent extra money on one player. There's pressure. How is Lewis going to react to that pressure? He is the man at the moment. He's got big picture, big stage. He wants to prove his worth. He's proven his worth overseas. Got to prove it here. Got to prove it here. Got to prove it at this level, and he should be. This is easier than when he had it in England. So this is a perfect time for him to say, "Boom, I'm here. This is what I've got to offer."
And he's also an underdog. He's playing for an underdog. And so I'm tending towards this one, because the underdog could actually cause a surprise tomorrow morning. And if they do, then we really truly know what this Titans outfit is. They're more of a red ball side than they are a limited over side. And that's fine. That's fine too. But Tim, any final words before we close out the show for this week?
Just to watch out on what I've basically said, but this is a big broader point. Watch out for this former Colpax. What sort of impact are they going to have? I've been saying for 2 or 3 years that if they come back, if they're allowed to come back, they will have a gigantic impact on our cricket. What influence are they going to have on this week's games? Batting, bowling, leadership. Because their input is going to be potentially massive in these games. Absolutely. It could actually turn games. As you said with an SWG game, Les Deploy has the ability to make 80 or 50 balls.
Ooh.
If he makes 80 or 50 balls, gets points.
He wins the game for them.
Game over.
Yeah.
Finish. Klopp.
And you
Came
saw
over.
that in the group. You saw that in the group stages with Wayne Parnell. He wasn't a cold pack, but he was in the UK. He came back. He added a lot of experience to this Western Province side that had one of the worst 3 years of cricket as a franchise. Before we actually moved provincially. We looked at also Riley Rousseau. Yes, he didn't go cold pack, but he did kind of leave South Africa and tell us that he doesn't want us anymore. He added a very spicy punch to an already up and coming, very strong unit in the Knights. And obviously Simon Harmer, we saw in CSA T20 Challenge, he made the Titans very competitive. He gave them every chance, even though they ended up losing to the Warriors and getting knocked out by them. So it's going to be quite interesting to see. I for one, I'm interested to see the best off spinner in the world come through and do his thing and reclaim his mantle. And Tim just told me that David Warner's out first ball in their warm-up game. I actually didn't know Australia was playing. Who are they playing? Please don't tell me.
New Zealand.
Come on.
Sorry, no, I love when Warner failing. I'm sorry, but I just love it.
Look, we all love it when Warner fails, but that's the end of our show. Tim, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much to our listeners on what is it, Anchor podcast. We're also on Spotify and we're also on Apple Podcasts. So check us out on there at One World Sports Radio. If you type it in, you'll find us. Thank you very much, Tim. Remember, Friday is our World Cup preview. We're going to be discussing World Cup preview. We've got a guest already lined up. We might bring another one of the regulars in to just discuss what we're going to see on Saturday at 12 o'clock when the World Cup opens. I'm excited to see the opening ceremony and pretty much mostly that because I don't want to die. I don't want to die death by 1,000 cuts like the last World Cups, but we'll see how it goes. Until Friday, everybody, take care and goodbye. Enjoy the CSA T20 Challenge. Good luck to all the participants who've also been on our podcast before. We're looking forward to see who's going to come out in the final. Thank you very much. Have a great day. And le sale cacajizo.